Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Conrad Gorlinski and this is the news. No thank you, Prime Minister, was one Polish truck driver's reply last Tuesday to Boris Johnson's proposal to allow foreign drivers to work in Britain on short-term visas to alleviate a lack of truckers. The crisis has been worsened by Brexit and the coronavirus pandemic. A post-Brexit shortage of truck drivers, an estimated 100,000, has sown chaos through British supply chains, and everything from food to fuel has raised the spectre of disruptions and price rises in the run-up to Christmas. The British government on Sunday announced a plan to issue temporary visas for 5,000 foreign truck drivers to address the shortfall, which has seen gas station pumps run dry in cities across the country. Some Polish hauliers said that the offer was laughable and that few would be likely to take it up. And the German freight industry said drivers who left after Brexit would not go back. No thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I will not take advantage of this opportunity. I don't think anyone would want to relocate for 3 months just to help the British sort out their Christmas. Paika said he thought Britons needed to change their attitude towards people from Central and Eastern Europe, and said he had stopped driving in Britain just before Brexit. The British very often look down on us workers from Eastern Europe, with superiority. This is something we experienced very often. I think that, first of all, British people should change their attitude towards people from Central and Eastern Europe. The money you can earn in the UK is not worth the hassle you have to deal with, and all those dangerous situations, not to mention being separated from your family. If you go to work in Britain for 3 months, you will not see your loved ones for 3 months. Fellow driver Jacek Rembikowski, 60, said he also had stopped working in Britain and came back to Poland before Brexit. There was a lot of uncertainty about how we will be treated in this situation, whether Brexit will shake the whole industry and whether the drivers, whether we, will still be welcome. Well, anyway, my decision was to leave. There was also financial reasons for leaving, and as for going back home, I decided it was time to settle. Now I only drive in Poland. I don't want to work abroad. Before, I used to drive across Europe from Norway to Portugal. Ministers want businesses relying on truck drivers to pay more and offer better conditions rather than count on cheap foreign labor. But haulers and other businesses say that they can only be a long-term fix, while in the meantime it will mean prices increasing and the risk of a prolonged rise in inflation. The British Retail Consortium urged the government to broaden the size and scope of the visa scheme to attract the truckers needed to keep Christmas supplies on track. The Premier of Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, Gladys Berejiklian, resigned on Friday after a corruption watchdog said it was investigating whether she was involved in conduct that constituted or involved a breach of public trust. Berejiklian's shock resignation comes as the social division regarding the months-long lockdowns in her state is reaching dangerous levels. Berejiklian said the issues being investigated were historical matters, but she felt compelled to resign because of the long time frames likely to be involved in the investigation.
My resignation as Premier could not occur at a worse time, but the timing is completely outside of my control, as the ICAC has chosen to take this action during the most challenging weeks of the most challenging times in the state's history.
The NSW Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, on Friday said the scope of its investigation had widened and includes whether between 2012 and 2018 Berejiklian engaged in conduct that constituted or involved a breach of public trust by exercising public functions in circumstances where she was in a position of conflict between her public duties and her private interest, as she was in a personal relationship with the then NSW MP Daryl Maguire. Maguire is currently the focus of the corruption investigation. Maguire told the same wide-ranging inquiry last year he had received envelopes full of thousands of dollars in cash at his Parliament office as part of a scheme for Chinese nationals to fraudulently acquire visas, and had also tried to make money from his position as chairman of the Parliament's Asia-Pacific Friendship Group by promoting a series of Chinese business deals in the Pacific Islands. Many Australians also accused Berejiklian of accepting millions of dollars from pharmaceutical companies to make sure that their innovative new medications are marketed as widely as possible.
Resigning at this time is against every instinct in my being and something which I do not want to do. I love my job and I love serving the community, but I have been given no option following the statement that's been issued today.
Russia's former imperial capital yesterday hosted the wedding of a descendant of the Russian royal family, in the first such event in more than a century. Grand Duke George Mikhailovich Romanov tied the knot with Italian fiancée Victoria Romanova Bettarini at St. Isaac's Cathedral in St. Petersburg in an elaborate religious ceremony with hundreds of foreign guests in attendance. Russia's last Tsar, Nicholas II, his wife, and 5 children were killed by a revolutionary firing squad in July 1918 in the cellar of a merchant's house in Yekaterinburg, a city 1,450 kilometers east of Moscow. This was the first place in Russia to which we returned, George Mikhailovich, 40, told news website fontanka.ru about the choice of St. Petersburg for his wedding. This is very, very close to the family. George Mikhailovich was born in Spain to Grand Duchess Maria Vladimirovna of Russia, the self-proclaimed heir to Russia's imperial throne, and her husband Grand Duke Michail Pavlovich of Russia. He lived in France and Spain for most of his life. His great-grandfather, Grand Duke Kirill Vladimirovich, managed to escape Bolshevik violence during the 1917 revolution to Finland. He and his family later relocated to Western Europe. George Mikhailovich visited Russia for the first time in 1992 and now lives in Moscow, where he works on a number of charity projects. Bettarini, 39, converted to the Russian Orthodox faith last year and took the name Victoria Romanovna. The Romanov dynasty ruled Russia for 300 years before Nicholas II abdicated in 1917, setting Russia on course for the Bolshevik Revolution, civil war, and 70 years of communist rule. Russia's Orthodox Church canonized Nicholas II in 2000 after being portrayed as a weak leader by Soviet authorities. And the 13th festival of the unrepentant, unbreakable, accursed has ended in Gdynia. Once again, the Tri-City held a festival of films that could not have been made under the rule of communism or other totalitarianism. The Cursed, the Unbeaten, and the Unbreakable were presented in 16 films, documentaries, and radio plays that were admitted to the competition. The theme of this year's edition of the festival is freedom. This is the 4th day of the film festival, and we've reached the final gala, during which the best producers will receive their awards. Since Wednesdays, movies, TV series, and documentaries have been screened in the city of Gdynia, all of them focused on history. The festival is not just a place where we can show Poland's path to freedom, but also inspire each other and think more broadly about how we should act in order to be true Polish patriots. The film festival, dedicated to the Polish anti-communist military underground, has been running since 2008. As usual, thanks for tuning in with us this evening. Stay with us for Poland Daily Business, Poland Daily Weather, and other programs. But for me, it's have a great Saturday night.